Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me today as we dive into some very important and concerning updates coming out of Dallas Cowboys camp. This latest round of news has fans holding their breath because it involves one of the brightest young stars on the Cowboys defense, cornerback DaRon Bland, and also ties into a very intriguing free agency visit involving former first overall pick Jadeveon Clowney. These two stories have collided in a way that raises major questions about the Cowboys' defense heading into this season, and as we know, in the NFL, timing is everything. So let's go through what we know, what this means, and how it could reshape the Cowboys' defensive outlook as we move forward. The first headline grabbing attention is DaRon Bland's injury report. Bland is not just another player in the secondary, he has become a household name in Dallas and across the league after a record-breaking season last year where he emerged as a defensive playmaker of the highest order. His uncanny ability to not only defend passes but turn them into scoring opportunities was a game-changer for Dallas. That's why any mention of Bland's health immediately becomes a huge storyline. According to reports, Bland has been dealing with an issue that forced him onto the injury report this week, and while the team has not disclosed the full extent just yet, the concerning part is that it may not be something that can be brushed off as minor. Anytime you're talking about one of your cornerstone defenders potentially missing time or playing at less than 100%, alarm bells start ringing, and for good reason. The Cowboys have already seen what happens when their secondary is hit with injuries. Last year, Trayvon Diggs went down early in the season, and while Bland stepped up in historic fashion, the ripple effect was felt throughout the defense. Bland's rise to stardom filled the gap and stabilized things, but now the roles could be reversed if Bland is sidelined or limited, and suddenly Dallas would be scrambling to adjust once again. Defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer, who came in with a reputation for tough, disciplined defensive schemes, would need to immediately rethink his game plan if one of his best corners isn't fully available. Fans know all too well that in today's NFL, elite defenses are often undone not by poor schemes, but by injuries that test their depth at the worst possible times. What makes this news even more significant is the timing. We are heading into a crucial stretch where the Cowboys are not just trying to establish momentum, but also prove that this defense can carry them deep into the playoffs. Dak Prescott and the offense have talent, but it has been the defense, led by stars like Micah Parsons and DaRon Bland, that has given Dallas its identity in recent years. If Bland's injury is more than a minor issue, the Cowboys would lose a key piece of that identity, and it would immediately open the door to questions about how they plan to cover the void. Now, this is where the other major storyline of the week becomes so interesting: Jadeveon Clowney's visit with the Cowboys. The timing could not be more coincidental. Clowney, once the number 1 overall draft pick and still one of the most physically gifted pass rushers in the league, has been on the Cowboys' radar as they consider adding more veteran depth to the defensive front. Reports suggest that Clowney has visited with the team and discussions are ongoing, which has sparked plenty of speculation about what role he could play in Dallas. While Clowney has never fully lived up to the expectations of being the top pick, he has carved out a long career as a disruptive edge presence, known for his run defense, versatility, and occasional flashes of dominance as a pass rusher. So how do these two stories intersect? Well, if Bland's injury sidelines him, it changes the entire complexion of the Cowboys' defensive strategy. Losing a star in the secondary can often be balanced by ramping up pressure up front, making life more difficult for opposing quarterbacks. In that sense, bringing in a player like Clowney could be Dallas's way of offsetting the potential absence of Bland. If you can't lock down receivers as effectively without your star corner, then you make sure the quarterback doesn't have the time to get the ball out cleanly. That's where someone like Clowney could come in, pairing him alongside Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and the rest of the pass rush rotation could create a nightmare for offensive lines and by the secondary some much-needed help. Cowboys fans have been divided on the idea of adding Clowney. On one hand, he brings veteran experience and a nasty edge against the run, which could shore up one of Dallas's lingering weaknesses. On the other hand, his career has been inconsistent, with injuries and fluctuating production always part of the story. Some wonder if at this point in his career he's more of a rotational piece than a true difference maker. But with the recent scare involving Bland, suddenly depth at every defensive position looks more critical than ever, and Clowney's presence could be the insurance policy the Cowboys need. It's also important to consider how Mike Zimmer might view this situation. Zimmer is a defensive coach who values toughness and versatility, and Clowney fits that mold when healthy. While Zimmer would of course prefer to have Bland at full strength in his secondary, he also knows that championship defenses often require adjustments on the fly. Adding a piece like Clowney could give him another tool to adapt and maintain the aggressive, physical style of play he is known for. Cowboys leadership, including Jerry Jones, has always been willing to make bold moves to keep their roster competitive, and the Clowney visit could very well be a sign that the team is preparing for worst-case scenarios, including the possibility that Bland's injury lingers longer than expected. The fanbase, as you can imagine, has been buzzing with reaction. Social media is filled with concern about Bland's health, with many pointing out just how irreplaceable his playmaking has been. Others are debating whether Clowney is the right fit, with some arguing that this is the type of low-risk, high-upside signing that could pay off late in the season, while others remain skeptical about whether he still has enough left in the tank to move the needle. Regardless of which side of that debate you're on, one thing is clear: the Cowboys' defensive picture is suddenly far more uncertain than it was just a week ago. When we take a step back and look at the big picture, this is yet another reminder of just how fragile the NFL season can be. One injury report can shake the confidence of an entire fanbase, and one free agency visit can spark a wave of speculation about roster reshuffling. For the Cowboys, who have been knocking on the door of Super Bowl contention but haven't been able to break through, every piece of news carries that extra layer of weight. Fans want to believe this is the year Dallas puts it all together, but that dream hinges on stars like DaRon Bland staying healthy and productive. If that's in jeopardy, then the team must be proactive, whether that means leaning on current depth or pulling the trigger on signings like Clowney. As we wait for more clarity on Bland's injury status, Cowboys Nation will be watching every update closely. If it turns out to be minor, this could all blow over quickly, and the addition of someone like Clowney would be viewed as a luxury rather than a necessity. But if it's more serious, then the urgency ramps up, and suddenly Dallas will be forced to rely on its defensive line and veteran additions to keep their championship hopes alive. Either way, the spotlight is firmly on how this team responds, both on the field and in the front office. So the story here is really about balancing optimism with realism, balancing star power with depth, and balancing the immediate concern over DaRon Bland with the long-term possibilities of Jadeveon Clowney. That's what makes this moment so pivotal. The Cowboys are at a crossroads, and their next few moves could go a long way toward determining whether the season ends in heartbreak or history. And with that, we'll wrap it up here for today's update on the latest Cowboys news. The situation with DaRon Bland's injury report is definitely concerning, and the Jadeveon Clowney visit adds another layer of intrigue to what's already shaping up to be a dramatic season. Cowboys fans, keep your eyes on the news wires because developments are coming fast, and this team's defensive identity could be shifting before our very eyes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the latest updates, make sure you hit that like button to show your support, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a single update. We'll be here breaking down every twist and turn in this Cowboys season, and you won't want to miss what comes next.